Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1707B, and today's date is November 4th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Stealth Bomber Making Its Approach, Blockade Removed. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I put up a new interview with Harley Schlenger. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight, and it will bring you to the interview. Or you can go over to the X22Report.com or NewSentinel.com sites. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the interview there. Or go to Steemit, that is steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can listen to the interview on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, in 2 more days, we're going to have the election, and we can see that Q came back online. We also know that Q mentioned that Facebook was hacked into, so was Google, and this was right before the elections, and Q said, is this a coincidence? Which it is not. And there was a breach of about 120 million Facebook accounts. Then they looked at it and said, well, it was only 90 million users that had their access tokens hacked into. But what we're seeing right now is that this problem goes far beyond the hackers getting, their relationship status, username, gender, because what we've learned is that the private messages, they have been compromised for at least 81,000 Facebook user accounts. So once again, Q has pointed us in this direction of Facebook being hacked right before the elections, and it looks like maybe the same exact people that hacked into it wanted to see what people were talking about in regards to the election system. So we see the deep state, they are becoming very, very desperate, and we can see that this whole thing is going to crash and fall apart around them. Now, going back to 2014, then Director of National Intelligence James Clapper sent a letter assuring Senator Charles Grassley and Ron Wyden that enhanced monitoring of intelligence community workers was designed to find leakers and inside threats and was not intended to thwart lawful whistleblowing. Now, this was under the Obama administration. What we've come to learn was this was a lie. We've come to learn under the current administration that the entire program was to catch the whistleblowers and to put them in jail. And it wasn't about, let's see what they have to say and let's help them out. Now, we reported on this quite a while ago, and we knew that this program that they created was not to protect whistleblowers. It was about catching them and shutting them up and putting them in jail. And this whole entire pledge to Congress, to Senator Charles Grassley, was false, just like Clapper lied before when he told Congress that they were not spying on the American people, and it turns out, yes, they were. So once again, they've been caught in a lie. Of course, the mainstream media really doesn't do much about this, but we can see at this point that there's been a lot of lies. I mean, think about the war on terror. They tricked the American people with false flags, so we would go and invade different countries around the world, and they said that we were fighting terrorism. Well, according to a report released by Dr. Netta Crawford, professor of political science at Brown University, the spending on this war on terror hit $5 trillion. So, since 9/11, the United States has spent $5 trillion on the war on terror. But guess what? Terrorism has increased 6,500% since 2002. They probably should rename this to the War of Terror. We knew and we know that this was never about fighting terrorism, because who was behind the terrorism? It was the deep state. They're the ones who created. This is why they needed all these funds, to keep the terrorists operational, to keep their system operational. So if we go back in time and we look at 2003 and before 2003, we see something very interesting. Before the 2003 U.S. invasion, in Iraq. Do you know how many suicide attacks there were in Iraq? None. So before the United States invaded Iraq, there was no terrorism. There was nothing there. Afterwards, there were 1,892 suicide bombers. Now remember how this all works. They needed to go into each one of these countries because these countries were threatening to sell their oil not using the dollar. If they did this, the petrodollar system would collapse. This would mean that the entire central banking system would collapse. They didn't want this to happen. So they made a plan to go into each and every one of these countries. Of course, they used the idea of terrorism, freedom, democracy, you name it. And they said, we have to chase down Al-Qaeda. And remember how it works. Going into any type of country, we're looking for Al-Qaeda. Where are they? Oh my God, Al-Qaeda must be in there. Or they used Al-Qaeda to say that there was terror in there. Then they went ahead and they removed the government and put a puppet regime in there. Anyone that was going to fight against this puppet regime, they called those people Al-Qaeda. Now, these could be the people of Iraq or Libya or Lebanon, but they needed a way to protect the puppet regime, so they put into place the law which allowed them to bomb terrorists, and they called them Al-Qaeda, even though these people were not Al-Qaeda. Then they would use Al-Qaeda in different countries like Syria, which is really the paid mercenary forces, to fight against the president there, Assad. Then they had to create another terrorist group called the Islamic State because Al-Qaeda wasn't doing the job. The moderate rebels weren't doing the job. Actually, they got caught supplying equipment to the moderate rebels, which were called Al-Qaeda at the time. And then they said, no, there's the moderate rebels over here, the Al-Qaeda's over there. So they're really not one and the same. They're really separate, but really they're all the same. Because this is what happens when you get caught. You have to make up different things. So they use Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, Al-Nusra, and the rest to fight against Assad. If they were successful and they removed Assad, then they would say, the people fighting against the new puppet regime, well, they're Al-Qaeda, so we can use drones and things against them. This is how it all worked. And we can see that their entire plan, it's falling apart. And the deep state, they used the people's money to push their agenda. $5 trillion on fake terror, fake wars that they created. Now, it looks like the deep state, they are trying to get ahead of what is going to be happening in Iran. Now, when we hear about this, we have to think projection, think players. Out of the corporate media, the mainstream media, they're coming up with stories that say the CIA's communications suffered a catastrophic compromise. It started in Iran. And they said in 2013, hundreds of CIA officers, many working nonstop for weeks, scrambled to contain a disaster of global proportions, a compromise of the agency's inter-based covert communication system used to interact with its informants in dark corners around the world. Teams of CIA experts worked feverishly to take down and reconfigure the websites secretly used for these communications. Others managed operations to quickly spirit assets to safely and oversaw other forms of triage. So the question is, why are they coming out with this story? Why now? Remember, we have to think projection. So what is this all about? Well, back then, it looks like there was a operation to develop a nuclear weapons program in Iran. This is coming out of the deep state, just like North Korea. The article is citing 11 anonymous sources that claim that the CIA comms were compromised. So, again, these are all anonymous. They're just putting it out there. The reason why they're doing this is they're covering this all up. They're covering up what the deep state was doing in Iran. Remember, Hillary sold out the CIA and the weapons program, and they had to stop those individuals that were catching on and what was really going on in these different areas. So they were exposed, and a lot of people got killed. And now they're projecting out there, trying to say, something went wrong. We don't know what happened, but we all know what happened. We know who was behind this. We know that they were sold out. And this was done on purpose back then. And now they're trying to cover all of this up. Now, Trump is continually pressuring Iran, and it's not Iran itself, it's the deep state operatives that are working inside of Iran. And if you notice, Trump continually comes out and he says that the White House is open to working out a more comprehensive agreement and dropping Obama's agreement, where Obama was paying these individuals, that we can come up with something completely different. And of course, what Trump is trying to do here, and the Patriots, they're trying to put a lot of pressure on those rogue elements within Iran. And this is why Trump put up that picture of like this Game of Thrones where it says sanctions are coming. And we see that they're trying to pressure Iran, the rogue elements, and the government of Iran to make a new deal. They're doing almost the same thing they did with North Korea, but Iran is a tougher nut to crack. And I think they will get there, and I think the deep state will be defeated, but it's taking a little bit longer than North Korea because it's a tougher area, a tougher situation, and it looks like the deep state is much more embedded in Iran than they were in North Korea. So it looks like it's a tougher situation. We see the white helmets there warning that the Idlib truce, well, it's failing, which means they're getting ready to push a false flag in this area, and they want the Western countries to protect the Syrians. Now, first of all, we know that the white helmets, they're working with the terrorist groups because they're one and the same. Second of all, they're not talking about protecting the Syrians. They're talking about helping them out to try to push their agenda, which means they're getting set up and ready to use a false flag in Syria, where they're saying that the Idlib truce is falling apart and we might see Assad use chemical weapons on the people of Syria, which really means the terrorists are going to use their chemical weapons. They're going to hurt people in Syria. It might be a hoax. It might be fake. We know they're filming. But this is what they're pushing out there. They're trying to make everyone think that the Idlib truce is falling apart. Syrians are going to get hurt. And when it falls apart, Assad's going to use chemical weapons, and a lot of people are going to die. This is what they're planning for. This is going to be their story. But in fact, we know it's really the terrorist groups. I mean, all along, I can't believe not one mainstream media outlet said, hey, do you ever think that maybe terrorists are using the chemical weapons? Because they are terrorists, right? No one even brought that up ever. It's amazing. They always just said Assad. Yes, Assad is killing his own people. This is why people voted for him. This is why people are coming back to the country, because he uses chemical weapons on his own people. The whole entire story makes absolutely no sense. Now, Q has dropped some more breadcrumbs, so let's go into some of Q's posts here. Post 2389. Q put up a link to time.com, said never forget, and this link is the 25 most influential people on the internet, and yes, Trump is one of those people. Let's move on to post 2390. There's a picture, a meme of Trump, Rosa Parks, Muhammad Ali, and it says, why doesn't the media remember this? Trump being given the Ellis Island Award for contributing to the conditions of inner-city black youth, standing alongside Muhammad Ali and Rosa Parks. Under this, Q says, there is truth in memes, truth that destroys the fake news narrative. House of Cards, Q. Let's move on to post 2381. Here's another picture, a meme, and we see it has certain individuals in here. And one of them is Jesse Jackson, and the other one is Al Sharpton, and it says, is Trump a racist? If your answer is yes, then you have been successfully brainwashed by the mainstream media. The truth will set you free. Q. Let's move on to post 2392. Q puts up a link to New York Times, and this is about the election 2016 voting precinct maps, and this is on the New York Times, and it shows a picture of the United States, and it shows the different precincts of where people are voting, and it says cross-reference blue areas with illegal immigrant high population zones. You might be shocked what you discover. The real truth about Ds depend on illegal immigrants and why they care about them than you. Hashtag facts matter. Q. So to understand all of this, we're going to move on to post 2393 because this is where Q starts to explain it. So in post 2393, Q shows post 2392 and actually shows the map and shows the percentage of undocumented immigrants and shows where they are. And under it, there's a link to twitter.com, and it's called The Great Storm, and we'll get into that in just a minute. And under it, it says, amazing what you discover when you research for yourself. God bless you, patriots. Q. So what did The Great Storm say? Well, The Great Storm tweeted out the following. The map of the 2016 election suggested there are interesting voting patterns correlated with high illegal immigrant areas. The Great Storm found a pattern. Areas with high illegal immigrant population correlate with the Democrat strongholds. And what they're showing here is exactly where this is and where the illegal immigrants are. They're up in they're up in New York. They're up in New Jersey. They're in Florida. They're in Texas. They're all in California. And they show where these individuals are. Let's move on to post 2394. Q put up a link, which is a Twitter link, to Chuck Grassley. Q says, nothing to see here. Q. So what did Senator Grassley say? Today, Chairman Chuck Grassley referred Judy Monroe Layton to the Justice Department for investigation for making materially false statements to the committee during the course of its investigation. Under questioning by committee investigators, Ms. Monroe Layton admitted, contrary to her prior claims, that she had not been sexually assaulted by Judge Kavanaugh and was not the author of the original Jane Doe letter. What? Ms. Monroe Layton confessed to committee investigators that 1. She wanted to get attention, 2. It was a tactic, 3. That was just a ploy. Potential violations of federal law, 18 U.S.C. Section 1001, materially false statements, and 1505, obstruction. Chuck Grassley went on to say, committee investigations in support of the judicial nomination process are an essential part of the committee's constitutional role. The committee is grateful to citizens who come forward with relevant information in good faith, even if they are not 100% sure about what they know. But when individuals intentionally mislead the committee, they divert committee resources during time-sensitive investigations and materially impede our work. Such acts are not only unfair, they are potentially illegal. It is illegal to make materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statements to congressional investigators. It is illegal to obstruct committee investigations. Monroe Layton admitted she made up the story about Kavanaugh raping her and confessed she never met him. I mean, think about this for a second. We all knew that this was a complete fake, fabricated story from the very beginning. And now these individuals are coming forward, and many others are going to be found out that they lied. Let's move on to post 2395. Q put up a link to Twitter to Lisa May 62. Under this it says, plus MS-13/ISIS reinforcements for wet work. R.E. Reed drops REMS-13. Put up another Twitter link for Representative Matt Gaetz. See the gun tucked in the pants of the money man. So what Q is saying is that the illegal aliens like MS-13 and other gangs are disposable assets for criminal enterprises like wet work, which means assassinations. So Lisa May Crowley tweeted out the following. Speaking tonight at the rally about Dems and why they want illegal aliens coming to our country. At Real Donald Trump said, why do Dems really want? They want them to vote. Sound familiar? So the other link that Q put up is a tweet by Representative Matt Gaetz. Now, we showed this before where we have this individual who is handing out money to all these individuals, and this individual does have a weapon tucked in his pants. And this is why Q is saying, look at the weapon, look at the gun tucked in the pants of the money man, part of the MS-13 gang. Now, we know the money is coming from Soros. Trump has mentioned this over and over, tweeted it out. Then we come to find out that George Soros is now partnering with MasterCard to hand out money in the form of investment capital to migrants, refugees, and others struggling within their communities worldwide. Through their partnership, Soros is effectively providing open financial support for migrants and refugees seeking to enter the U.S. and Europe. Now, the partnership between Soros and MasterCard, which they are calling Humanity Ventures, is the result of Soros saying that he is going to help certain refugees, and we talked about this before. He's going to help Africa, those refugees there, move up into Europe. He's going to help Central America move into the United States. Well, he teamed up with MasterCard, and they're spending $500 million to address this, the challenges of facing migrants and refugees. So he is behind this, but the mainstream media, they're trying to counter this with other stories showing that he's really not involved. But guess what? He is. Trump has been tweeting it out. Q has been letting us know. They know all. They already know about this. Now, the Department of Homeland Security, they're saying that the migrants are coming from 20 different countries. And these countries are Somalia, India, Haiti, Afghanistan. There's also convicted criminals, gangs within this group. And we know you don't need that many people to push an agenda. The other people that they're paying, they might be from these certain countries. Then you have other people that are mixed into these groups to push their provocations. We've seen it time and time again where you see people protesting and maybe they have a handful, maybe 10 or 15 people dressed in black, having black hoods. They start picking up garbage cans, throwing it, lighting things on fire. Then they try to get the other people to join in. This is what's going to happen here. This is why MS-13 gangs, other people are involved. This is why these people are there, to get everyone going. And if you can get thousands of people going, guess what? You have complete and utter chaos. Let's move on to post 2396. Q put up POTUS meeting Putin on 11/11. Now, what are the odds of that? Very interesting. Let's go back to post 1234. Because if we go back to then, an Anon said, "Thank Q, we are an existential threat to the establishment. Hashtag trusting the plan." Q responded, "America will be unified again, 11/11/2018. So now we find out that Trump is going to meet Putin on this day, something the deep state does not want. Let's move on to post 1357. An Anon put up the following. Q is saying there won't be arrest until the justice system is cleaned out. This has to include state judges. Do you have any idea how long that will take? We are now looking at next year for the rest of POTUS judges to be confirmed. That's just federal judges. Doesn't include state." Q responded, "What must happen pre-11/11? 11/11 provided as a strategic marker. Post-midterms, red wave coming, strength, justice." So he got Kavanaugh in there. A lot of people have been fired. A lot of people resigned. Getting the people that POTUS and others need into place to push the D-class. Now POTUS is meeting with Putin. All these different pieces are coming together. I wonder if Putin has any information on the Uranium One deal. Most likely, yes. Do you think Putin will start to hand over some information to Trump? Most likely, yes. And this is what Q has been talking about. Post 2397. Q says, "Keep your eyes on the ball. Midterms and memes. Kill brackets. Remember, POTUS already ordered the D-class. It's just sitting there waiting for the what? The right time. Rod Rosenstein in Kill Brackets All Bold pushed back hard. Met Trump on Air Force One to try to convince him. Trump didn't want to meet with Rod Rosenstein and pushed him off many, many times and finally met with him. OIG tasked to review determined sensitive info. OIG works with Huber, important to remember. Oh, and by the way, OIG is the Office of Inspector General, if you forgot what the acronym meant. Huber reports directly to Sessions, important to remember. Was the D class already cleared for release? Yes. Was the gambit played by Rod Rosenstein to stall and delay post-election banking on D's win house? Pretty much. POTUS Air Force One, Rod Rosenstein, an arrow pointing to an enemy who feels safe and in control is an enemy who is not safe. POTUS Air Force One, Rod Rosenstein, pointing to Mueller, end. Important to remember, bold in kill brackets. How do you navigate around install blockade? Now, Mueller is in kill brackets, all bold, all caps. Mueller designed to take in evidence needed to expose Deep State, Department of Justice, block R.E. Mueller's evidence ongoing investigation. Mueller designed to limit POTUS' ability to maneuver. Mueller designed to stall for time until midterm elections to terminate all House, Senate ongoing investigations. Mueller designed to safeguard D-Party base, false narrative, R.E. Russia collusion, POTUS cheated, evil, sky falling, in an effort to divide and mobilize for future protests, riots, threats, violence, false flags, etc. Mueller designed to provide fake news with ammunition to sway public opinion, obstruct foreign and domestic agenda, fuel impeachment, removal, fuel anti-POTUS, division, prevent unity, etc. Mueller designed to demonstrate to foreign players that old guard still pulls strings. Mueller designed to mobilize D-Party for midterm vote win. Mueller designed to push D-Party backers to donate GoFundMe, D-Party, in kill brackets, all bold. Mueller designed as public outcry excuse should criminal charges be brought against them. We are being politically attacked because Mueller. How do you remove install blockade? How do you remove it? D-class, D-class, D-class. How do you navigate around installed corrupt FBI, Department of Justice? Use a stealth bomber. Then there's a line, vote, 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 Q. So the Republicans need to win. Kavanaugh is in place. People are being replaced in the FBI and Department of Justice. Mueller is there to protect everyone else, and it's going to fail. Rod Rosenstein, who thinks he's in control, is not in control. Because how do you get rid of all this? You use the stealth bomber. D-class, D-class, D-class. Post 2398. Q says, in kill brackets all bold, D-Party con. When you can't raise money organically through party, individual donations, voter base, you steal it from the American taxpayer and give it back to yourself in the form of campaign contributions. Example 1, Planned Parenthood. Gave a link to gao.gov, and Q went on to say, $1.5 billion provided in taxpayer funding over a 3-year period. Case 1. Planned Parenthood spent $30 million, disclosed real estimates close to $65 million, in taxpayer subsidies to influence the outcome of the 2018 midterm elections. Conclusion. Should it be legal for a taxpayer, D plus R plus I, funded organizations to donate massive amounts of money to the D-Party in an effort to sway an election? D insider term, T Walsh, Riri drops, Soros, and taxpayer funding. Your hard-earned tax dollars at work. Vote, vote, vote. Let's move on to post 2399. Shows a picture of Hillary Clinton and Robert Byrd. Now, under this it says, R.E. Robert Byrd, KKK member. From my first day in the Senate, I sought out his guidance, and he was always generous with his time and his wisdom. And as Secretary of State, I continue to rely on his advice and counsel. Hillary Clinton, 2008. Under this, it says, who are the real racists? Brackets, bold, 2016 Democrat nominee for President of the United States. Put up a link to Fox News. This is Hillary Clinton jokes. They all look alike. Now, we put this interview up before where Clinton was sitting there and they were talking about Booker and Eric Holder, and Hillary Clinton came out and said, well, they all look alike, and they made a joke about it. So Q says, in parentheses, all caps, they all look alike. Fake news cover-up, arrows, prevent black Americans from seeing the truth. Another free pass. The mainstream media didn't say anything about this. And I said this before. If this was Trump sitting there, it would have been completely different. Ignorance is bliss. Put up a link to youtube.com. This is Hillary Clinton talking about Robert Byrd. Take a listen.
Today, our country has lost a true American original, my friend and mentor, Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd was a man of surpassing eloquence and nobility, and I will remember him for many things, but most of all, for a heartfelt comment he made to me in the dark days following the attack on our country on 9/11. My state of New York was reeling, and we were scrambling to provide support and relief. Think of me as the third senator from New York, he said, and he meant it. Thanks to the leadership of Senator Byrd, who chaired the Appropriations Committee, New Yorkers and Americans got the help we needed. I will never forget his devotion and his friendship in that critical time. It is almost impossible to imagine the United States Senate without Robert Byrd. He was not just its longest serving member, he was its heart, its soul, and its historian. From my first day in the Senate, I sought out his guidance, and he was always generous with his time and his wisdom. I admired his tireless advocacy for his West Virginia constituents, his fierce defense of the Constitution and the traditions of the Senate, and his passion for a government that improves the lives of the people it serves. As Secretary of State, I continued to rely on his advice and counsel. I've been grateful for the support he provided as a leader of the Appropriations Committee to our diplomats and development workers as they serve our country and advance our interests all over the world. Robert C. Byrd led by the power of his example, and he made all of us who had the honor of serving as his colleagues better public servants and better citizens. After more than 5 decades of service, he left an indelible imprint on the Senate, on West Virginia, and on our nation. We will not see his like again. I am heartened to know that Senator Byrd is now reunited with his beloved Irma, the high school sweetheart who became his wife of nearly 70 years, the love and light of his life. My thoughts and prayers are with their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Robert C. Byrd left such a legacy.
Now, under that video link, it says, in parentheses, all bold, you are being controlled and fed a false narrative. Hashtag take back control. Hashtag facts matter. Hashtag sheep no more. Q. So, once again, everything is being timed for a specific purpose. The stealth bomber is on approach. The blockades are going to be completely removed. And America, the world, will be unified once again. And there are strategic markers like 11/11. And you can see that all these different moving pieces are coming together. We have to remember that the deep state, they've been entrenched for such a long time that they fight back at every turn. They're not just going to say, okay, you know what, we give up. And this election is their last hope of controlling the situation. If they cannot control it, they are doomed. And they will resort to other events. They will resort to other things. But once again, what do we have behind us? We have the truth. We have what really happened. We have facts. We have documentation. And the only way to cover all this up, to stop it, is with an event. So, if they win, they have the upper hand. If they lose, guess what? The only thing they have left at this point is events. That's all they have to try to cover this entire thing up. And one of the events could be an assassination. Let's not rule that out. They've done this in the past. I mean, look what they've done prior to the election that's coming up. In 3 weeks or so, we had Kavanaugh, we had the synagogue shooting, we have the caravan, we have the bomber, we have Khashoggi. All of this happened in a short period of time, and all the blame, and Q even acknowledged this, was going towards Q and Trump for all of these things that went on. And we know that these are all false flag, some are hoaxes, and they use this to create chaos. And the mainstream media put it all out there saying that this is Trump, this is Q, anyone following Q, they're all behind these people. And they were trying to convince the public of all this. But it looks like it was a complete failure. It didn't work. And guess what? Whatever they try next won't work either. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.